Get ready for Netflix's gripping new medical drama, Pulse. Set in a cutting-edge Miami trauma center, third-year resident Dr. Danny Sims is unexpectedly thrust into a promotion when beloved chief resident Dr. Xander Phillips gets suspended. Then, with the emotional and physical stakes at their highest, a storm will push the hospital and its residents to their limits. Witness how life can change in a heartbeat when you're operating under pressure. Watch Pulse, only on Netflix.
Canva presents your work horoscope for this week. Deadlines are in retrograde, which we all know can bring some intense energy. Our advice: fend off this forecast with Canva. Like Canva whiteboards to counter creative blocks, and Canva docs for clarity in communications. If you have any sales deals coming through, results will be in your favor with Canva presentations, manifesting many wins for you. It's a great week to love your work at canva.com.
This episode is brought to you by LifeLock. It's tax season, and we're all a bit tired of numbers. But here's one you need to hear. $16.5 billion. That's how much the IRS flagged for possible identity fraud last year. Now here's a good number. 100 million. That's how many data points LifeLock monitors every second. If your identity is stolen, they'll fix it, guaranteed. Save up to 40% your first year at LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply. This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injury is an additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
At the Musial with Alan and Daniel, we'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. Everyone come gather round, listen to your favorite sound. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We'll talk the games and all the rest, about the team that we love best. We'll talk about the Cardinals all night long. We're gonna talk about the Cardinals all night long.
Good evening. Welcome into another edition of Meet Me at Musial. I got to remember what show I'm doing. I hate that sometimes. But joining me tonight is another person that probably has trouble figuring out which show she is doing. It's Kelsey Burd. You'll find her over at Blue Sky at Bird Tweets. Kelsey, thanks for coming back. And how are you doing?
I am doing great, Daniel. It is a pleasure to be here with you. And hey, we as Cardinals fans right now don't have as much to complain about as maybe we thought we would. So I'm excited to dive into it with you tonight.
Yeah, it's a little confusing. I mean, especially after the last couple of years, it's like, how do shows are going to be like 20 minutes because we don't have as much to complain about. But it's been, here we are a week, basically a little bit over a week into the season. And I guess results have been a little bit of a mixed bag, but definitely a more positive start out of the gate than we expected, especially when you look at this offense. The offense has been, I can't even remember a time where I've been this excited about what the offense could actually do.
I agree. And on paper, it doesn't necessarily look a whole lot different than the last season and even the season before, right? So I think that's where we were like, okay, fool me once, fool me twice. Like, you know me, I'm as positive as they come, but I did not have high hopes outside of just, watching the individual guys that are always worth coming back for and the development and, just there's always something to come for, right? But I didn't necessarily think it was going to be Brant Brown and the rise of the Cardinals offense, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, who would have thought that bringing in a former Cub would have actually done something good for your team? Although I guess it worked with Wilson Contreras, so maybe we shouldn't throw too many stones. I think this is kind of what we thought maybe the offense would look like in July or August as these guys really kind of developed and got their feet under them. But for them to come out, from the get-go, it makes you have to ask the question, was Paul Goldschmidt the problem?
I mean, obviously, Goldie, just that piss poor attitude that he's known for. No, but you know
Yeah.
what? I think you make a good point in that I don't know, I'm big on the vibe, so I always maybe look a little
Mhm.
too into this, but I do think you see a difference in Nolan Arenado that can be reflected
Mm.
through the whole team from like 2023 when they had really an unexpected, horrible, stunted offense. He was the most visibly frustrated, felt like he was super uptight. 2024, you saw him like working through that in a little bit of a different way, maybe trying to loosen up a little bit and just let go of some of the frustration because it certainly wasn't getting him or the team anywhere. And I don't know about you, but this season so far, I feel like we see a Nolan Arenado who's doing the bird wings, who's flying with the team,
Mhm.
who's having a little fun out there. And I wonder if that in itself is reflective of what we're seeing, more fun, more life from the Cardinals offense and the team as a whole. What do you think?
I think there's something to that. I mean, I mentioned it, I think it was last week on the show, that I thought it was very telling that Nolan was doing all those little
Yeah.
silly social media things that the
Yes.
Cardinals do, with
Mhm.
it that usually are rookies and, guys you might not ever see again, but Nolan's right there in the middle of that, and I think he made it a concerted effort to say, "Look, I'm going to do better. I'm going to, maybe not carry the weight of the world on my shoulder every time I strike out or anything of that nature. I'm going to be a representative of this team or leader of this team." And I think, again, I'm joking about Paul Goldschmidt leaving, but you do wonder when you take away a pillar like that everybody's been leaning on, things can either collapse or people can stand on their own 2 feet a little bit, and I wonder if there is a little bit of, we can't rely on Goldie to, set the tone or to be that guy in the middle of the lineup. We're gonna have to do it ourselves, and it's so far so good.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, even just the weight of having those cornerstones of an Arenado and a Goldschmidt, there is a different tone to the team. There's a different level of expectation. And maybe there's a different idea of what like leadership even looks like that Arenado, among other guys. I mean, we know Brendan Donovan has been talked about as somebody who is a bit of a albeit unconventional leader at times. But I think, yeah, maybe Arenado is even finding challenging his idea of leadership and how he can take on that role a little differently without Goldschmidt around as well.
Yeah, and that being said, Paul Goldschmidt has a 128 OPS plus for the Yankees, so maybe it went both ways, maybe
Absolutely.
Goldie needed a new change of scenery as well, or at least a torpedo bat or something of that
Yeah,
nature.
I
I don't
think
know.
we all kind of saw that coming though, right? I remember this
Mhm.
time, even last season, just sitting there thinking like, yep, and it's gonna sting extra bad when he's hitting all those bombs in the Bronx next season. But good for
Yeah.
him. Obviously, we as Cardinals fans want nothing for the best for him and glad to see him do well wherever it's at.
Right, and that sting, like you said, that would be a lot more painful if the Cardinals weren't doing what they're doing,
For
right?
sure.
I mean, if Goldie's hitting, 5 homers and everybody on the Cardinals are hitting, 123, then it's like, oh, that wasn't but, that's not the case. There's nobody, Wilson Contreras and Mason Wynn started off slow, although they seem to starting to come around a little bit. Um, but everybody else has just about been clicking on all cylinders. And again, I don't know when you could even say that. I mean, take the weekend, that Ivan Herrera plays 2 games and does really well, and then they, bring in Pages for the 3rd game against the Twins, and he hits, a home run and a double, and it's like, what kind of magic beans are they using here? It's been, when you start looking up and down this lineup, it's hard to point out just one guy that's like, man, that's the guy stands out because so many of them are.
Right, and that's literally the exact opposite of like, there were times last season in games where it was just like, "Okay, we've got 4, 5, 6 guys to get through before I feel like we have a chance here to
Mhm.
get something going again." So, it is really interesting to feel really the opposite side of the coin where now it's like, where's the hole in the lineup? And it's amazing. I mean, it's very early, Daniel, I'm trying not to get too
Mhm.
excited, but we're gonna have fun watching every baseball game that we can, and the Cardinals are making it easy for us right now.
Yeah, I mean, what the Cardinals are one of what 3 teams, did I say 3 or 4 teams that have started the season with 10 hits in their first 7 games. Um, it's a team that I mean, I don't know. Let's just focus on Ivan Herrera, right? I mean,
Hmm.
guy hits 3 home runs in 1 game, so he does something that, no catcher has ever done for the Cardinals, and then follows it up with a home run in the next game as well, and, you know, and then just to because baseball's baseball, if they hadn't rained out today, he'd been sitting on the bench.
Right.
Um, and I don't know, and I think that's gonna be the kinda thing that's gonna be difficult for Ollie Marmol, right? Because if Herrera continues to hit like this, even with his defensive lapses or whatever the case may be, it's gonna be really hard to keep him out of the lineup.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I guess good problem to have. I mean, here we are kind of I know we joked a ton about last year carrying 3 catchers at times, and I guess
Mhm.
we're kind of doing it again, right? In a sense, but,
Yeah.
we decided to let Wilson Contreras be that bat first catcher. Problem is we definitely have 2 and maybe 3 bat first catchers. But yeah, you know what? I was looking back because I remembered last season that the Cardinals didn't hit a home run until at least a week or so into the
Oh,
season. So
yeah,
yeah, eighth
yeah.
game of the season, Ivan Herrera had the first Cardinals home run. On April 4th of 2024. And lo and behold, now, yeah, they've had 12 home runs in the first 7 games of the season. And 3 or 4 of those now belong to Ivan Herrera as well.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it's been incredible, and then we saw him, especially at the end of last season, really, kinda come into his own, and I think we knew that offensively he'd be fine, but I don't think we expected this kind of surge.
Right.
Although there was a lot of people in the offseason, a lot of, national people even kinda pointing to him as a breakout candidate, but I mean, 4 home runs in the first week. If he keeps that up, he's gonna have some numbers. I don't know if that he can hit, what is that, 80 something home runs, but maybe. I mean, if he wants to try, that's fine.
Well, I gotta point out to you while we're talking about home runs that, my guy Tommy Edman, I saw him hit a home run at, the Phillies stadium last night. He scored the only 2 runs or had the only 2 RBIs, but yes, Tommy Edman has 5 home runs so far this season, just behind Aaron Judge, who leads with 6, and then Ivan Herrera right behind them there with his 4. So all the people that we, absolutely predicted would be right behind Aaron Judge on the home run leaders list at the
I
beginning of
mean,
the
yeah.
season.
I mean, that's what we said when Tommy Edman left was how can you trade away the source of the whole power,
All those
of
Tommy
this team?
bombs. We're just gonna be
Yeah,
missing them.
yeah. I don't know I mean, you are the Tommy Edman fan, and what is that? I mean, he went to got to play with the Dodgers last year, got to win a ring. Did they change something in him? Is it just the leaving the Cardinals does this to people? What is going on with Tommy Edman?
I don't know. I mean, I think for him, I always thought that that potential was there. Not even necessarily the power, but just that his underlying numbers, like he was kind of being cheated of them because of being plug and play in the lineup.
Mhm.
And the Dodgers are kind of doing the same thing with him. Like he certainly doesn't bat in the same place in the lineup every day, but no matter where he's at in that Dodgers lineup, I mean, he's just protected and he has a different, he has to be pitched to differently in
Yeah.
the lineup that the Dodgers have than he was, especially in the last couple of seasons when he was playing with the Cardinals. And I think that that was really a disservice to him and was something that, played into those underlying numbers that fans would look at and say, well, like, this is why this guy's never going to get us anywhere. And it's okay to trade him away. But they are really capitalizing on that. And the Dodgers have multiple players who are super similar to Tommy Edman in the sense that they are
Mhm.
the quote unquote super utility between Miggy Rowe and Kike Hernandez, like Chris Taylor, but they aren't playing every day. They are not even as good
Yeah.
as Tommy Edman. So it made perfect sense for me that they would find a way to make him work for them in a way that the Cardinals had not really unlocked. But I don't think it's one thing. I think it's a lot of little things and mostly just being in a lineup where he is a little bit more protective to have to be pitched to more competitively.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably not the weekend to revisit that trade with Eric Fetty
Right.
getting
Yeah. Not
destroyed
great.
in Boston, but I still think on the whole, it probably made sense for the Cardinals to do that, and it made sense
Absolutely.
for the for Tommy Edman. I mean, it's one of those things that I think worked for everybody except maybe Tommy Pham. But so it is an interesting one to that will be an interesting one to look back on. If Tommy Edman goes into the Dodgers Hall of Fame or something, maybe yeah, we'll think about it differently. But short term, it's good for both sides.
Yeah, absolutely, and I never was one that was like, "This is ridiculous. Why are we doing this?" Like, I'm sad to see him go because he's
Mhm.
personally a favorite of mine, but, yeah, I do think it made sense. It does hurt when exactly, when it lines up like this with a rough Eric Fetty start and Tommy off to a very hot start, especially with the long ball that he is certainly not known for, but, yeah, I'm mostly interested to continue to follow with him, like, all of these little highlights that I feel like I was cherry picking to want to point out are really adding up. So it'll be interesting to see how they continue. But I guess on the other side with Eric Fetty, what are your hopes for him this season with the Cardinals? Because I feel like we didn't see that much from him even last season. And I don't really know how I feel about it or how much it really matters, honestly.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, one, I hope that yesterday was the worst game we see out of Eric
Hmm.
Fetty. And I'm not going to guarantee it is, but hopefully it is. I think going into the season, most people, and I would count it for me too, hoped that Fetty would pitch well enough that he would be a valuable piece of the trade deadline to be moved.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's still probably reasonable. Again, you don't want to get too hyped about 7 games, and
Right.
the Cardinals are 4-3, so that it's not in could have easily been 3-4 without a late explosion against the Angels. So you don't want to get too far over your skis, but you know, I think you still want that, right? Even if you don't trade him at the deadline, if he is a valuable part to a team that's actually contending, that's great. But you just can't have too many more of these because that was the concern. Is you're right, we didn't see a lot of him, and we didn't see, he didn't pitch as well for the Cardinals as he did for the White Sox,
Hmm.
and there's that concern that the league kind of figure him out, and he'll be a serviceable but not necessarily number 2 level starter. And I don't know. I think the jury's still out there.
Yeah, it does just seem that that is, I guess, my fear too, is he is just that another quote unquote serviceable guy, which the Cardinals love to collect and try to rely on. And hopefully, at least what we've heard, that they are changing their tune with that. And that is why I do ultimately hope that regardless of, how the numbers fall for him in the first half of the season, that yeah, that he can be a valuable trade piece, whether they are buying, selling, or somewhere in between, which is most likely. Because, yeah, I think we've got more to be excited about coming up through the system. And so it's weirdly frustrating, even more frustrating than maybe before, that we have these guys like Eric Fetty, Miles Michaelis, Steven Matz kind of hanging around. That where, at a certain point in time, they could be more valuable. But right now, it feels like they just don't fit.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it feels a lot. There's been a number of times in the past where the Cardinals have extended somebody or signed somebody only to see a internal option really play better. I think about the first time that Tommy Pham came around, and
Mhm.
really outplayed. And so you hate that to some degree. You hate that. I get that you have to you try to lock down. You get some certainty. The Cardinals are all about their certainty, and you are certainly got Miles Michaelis. So whatever that may be. Although I mean, to be fair, he pitched better than expected in his first outing, and I guess if we see more of those, maybe it won't be quite so bad that Quinn Matthews and Michael McGreevy are having to wait a little bit longer to get to the major leagues. But how likely is it, do you think, that we'll see more of those?
Right, and, the other question is even if we don't, like, even if we see, the Miles Michaelis who's giving up 5 plus runs in an inning every other
Mhm.
start, do they keep rolling him out there anyway? Like, how far are we taking this? Like, we're not really contending this year. And
Right.
we've seen them so many times roll the guys out there that they're paying regardless of, I mean, seemingly whether it is like the
Mhm.
best, most competitive decision or not. And yeah, the certainty is definitely, I am someone who is extremely risk averse, so I understand that. It's something that I've like appreciated about this team at
Mhm.
many points in time, but it's definitely culminated to the point now with us as fans that we're like, take a chance for the love of anything. Like, let's just, yeah, throw somebody new and young and exciting out there and let's see what we can do. So I am most interested to see how the starting rotation evolves throughout the season.
Yeah, and I think, a little bit we got a little bit of that, take a chance type of thing, right? With this late addition of Matthew Liberatore into the rotation
Mhm.
instead of Steven Matz. Were you surprised that the Cardinals went that way? And how do you expect this to shake out?
Yeah, I'm not sure. In a sense, like I loved Libby out of the pen, and I still kind of see that maybe ending up being his bread and butter, but I think they have like they seem so interchangeable to me in an
Mm.
unfortunate way. Like I think they're both probably more serviceable out of the bullpen in all reality. But maybe they looked at the matchups, for the first couple of weeks and said, I also think like I'm kind of a Matthew Liberatore apologist. I don't think he has been utilized or like developed in a way that has given him a fair chance, wherever
Right.
they've tried to use him. So in a way, I'm like, I'm always wanting him to get another shot, and I'm glad to see that. But it still seems so like up in the air and so fluid that I don't know that he'll really get what I would consider that fair chance now, or if it's too late to some extent as well. So yeah, I don't know. I kind of thought that they would be more likely to have Michael McGreevy be the fifth starter
Mhm.
and have both Liberatore and Steven Matz out of the pen, which I mean, how we have already seen already, Daniel, how you need at least 6, if not 7 starters on your staff because thank goodness we had Steven Matz to be able to come in
Yeah.
and pick us up from the rough Eric Fetty start. But that is going to happen with guys like even like Sonny Gray, but definitely with Eric Fetty, with Miles Michaelis, to the point where like, yeah, I want a Matthew Liberatore and a Steven Matz. I want them both in the bullpen. So
Yeah.
that's how I feel about it right now.
Yeah, I think that's fair. You're right. And when you see games like that, and then of course you get the rain out today, which means you've got a doubleheader tomorrow, which is going to probably tax a bullpen to some degree. And it feels like maybe, and I hate to, start digging at problems and such, but the bullpen isn't necessarily quite as strong as it was last year. It's still
Mhm.
pretty good, but last year Ryan Fernandez was kind of that, really, of course, beginning of the year couldn't get into a game, eventually became, a really great seventh inning guy. Cardinals have used him in some pretty high leverage situations this year, and it has not gone well. Is that small sample size? Is that the fact that relievers have trouble, repeating, or is there something more to that?
Yeah, I don't know. It's really hard to say. I'm hoping that it is small sample size because I love the idea of him being that kind of, seventh, that bridge to the Jojo Romero, the Helsley at the back of the bullpen. So I really hope it is small sample size, and I think the Cardinals are probably banking on that unless they're seeing something glaringly different, but his mustache still looks great, so I think he's,
Well,
holding
yeah.
strong. He's holding his spot on the staff, from that regard, but I I don't know. I'm wondering if there is some kind of a different dynamic out there because they are trying to have more set roles in the bullpen than they've had in a while, and how different guys respond to that, whether it's a level of pressure or preparation that has to be different. I think that is something that they could benefit from ultimately, but it's not
Mhm.
been necessarily how they operated the last couple of seasons. with the staff, but it does seem like more predictable, at least in this first week of games, like who they're going to go to. And they just have like their go-to guys, kind of like I don't know, it seems like there's less strategy to it. It's more just like, it's the 7th inning and we're ahead, it's your turn. Like, so it seems a little bit more, I guess, statistics driven, if you will, and maybe that's what they're going for. But I don't know, is that your read on it at all?
I mean, I think so. I feel like, I don't know. Fernandez has options now since he's not a Rule 5 guy, and I kind of expected him to be sent down or injured, put on the injured list by
Yeah.
the end of the weekend. And so far, we haven't even heard any kind of, rumors of that. And we did see an injury list move this week, but we'll talk about that in a minute. But I mean, yeah, it is kind of hard to know. I feel like in the early goings, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a little bit more role or scripted,
Yeah.
perhaps,
Yeah.
to use a word that I know you're well familiar with.
Mm-hmm.
To that they know that they want to use John King on Monday and Thursday, and so that's what they're planning to do. And if situations arise that they have to do something else, that they will. But that's the kind of the plan. And the Cardinals have been winning enough that it has allowed them not to have to necessarily scramble those plans. So as they try to figure out exactly who's got what, and who's how much of spring counts and how much of it doesn't. I think there's some of that, of course, and then there's Ryan Helsley, who's going to pitch if it's a save situation, pretty much. So I feel like maybe that's part of it, but it is hard to know for sure. I mean, they won, had a couple of games where they just had big blowouts at the end, so that kind of messes with things as well and lets you use some different people than you would have not normally used.
Right. Yeah. The pitching is always the most interesting thing to me, I guess, with the Cardinals, but particularly this season, I I think we could just see, I hope anyway, in a sense, that we see more turnover than before, especially if the offense is finally clicking, because I
Mhm.
do think that they have enough pieces that they can make it work, but they might have to be aggressive with different approaches and just kind of playing the hot hand. And I hate that thing with relievers where like it is just so hard to see consistency from them. I really, really hate that. But it is a thing, and sometimes you just got to keep rolling different guys out there, and we might have to see more of that than we want to kind of lock in that core group of guys that we seem to have last season, when
Mhm.
it unfortunately didn't end up mattering as much.
Right. It does feel like that's kind of the way of a season, right? That you spend. I mean, unless you've just got you've got your guy at the very back, and Jojo Romero seems to be kind of that guy too, and so far so good there. But it always feels like you're going to wind up with somebody that was started in that you know key three spot, maybe like a Giovanni Gallegos last year that falls out of it,
Mhm.
and then somebody that works their way into it. There's just based on results. And I think it'll be interesting to see if this isn't a small sample size, if Ryan Fernandez is not going to be that guy this year, who takes that spot, right? Who is the guy that comes up and becomes that lockdown reliever in that you can turn a turn it over from the sixth inning over to them and know that they'll get it to Ryan Helsley. I don't know who that. I mean, last year a little bit of that you thought maybe it was Matthew Liberatore. Now if
Exactly,
he's going
that's
to
what
be a
I was just
starter,
gonna say. Like, I kinda
yeah,
thought that they would really try to lock him into that role this season, and who knows, maybe they will, but I definitely did not see that coming, of giving him another shot at the starting rotation. I thought that they had closed that door, to be honest.
yeah, yeah. Especially the way he pitched last year, and it was like, okay, this isn't the way this we expected this trade to go, but he can give us value
Yeah.
in this spot, so let's take the value we got. But I guess if you're going, I mean, this really does feel like last chance scenario, right? For Matthew Liberatore. If for some reason he gets 10, 12, 15 starts here and they don't go well, then he can probably just expect to be a reliever for the rest of his career.
Yeah, it does worry me though, again, now that you bring that up, of them trying to to milk something that's already proven to run dry a little bit.
Mhm.
But yes, if not now, when? So I guess
Right.
we can't be terribly mad about it, especially given the other options and knowing that I think they fully expect the starting rotation to evolve over the first half of the season.
Yeah, I would think so, and I mean, to be able to do that is a luxury for them,
Yeah,
right? Because they don't have to worry about, "We've gotta win." We have to bring up Quinn Matthews because we have to win today. We can see what Matthew Liberatore has for, if he has 4 or 5 bad starts, it's not the end of the world if we can find an adjustment that works and, he can finally get something to click. And if it doesn't, then it's not the end of the world. We weren't expecting to win this way and win this year anyway. And I don't know. I think that's going to be very interesting to continue to watch how the Cardinals approach this, if they can actually approach it differently. They can say all they want about development and not necessarily trying to win every day, but I don't know if they can actually do it
right.
on long scale.
Yeah, that is my biggest question is, one, how much of that, like, attitude has been part of this effect of, like, pressure's off, just everybody go out there and play the best for yourself and in turn play the best for each other, and that is part of what we're seeing in this, like, kind
Mhm.
of loose, free, like, vibes above replacement, rising Cardinals offense that we have here, and how much of it is not gonna matter either way. Like, I don't know. I can't stop asking myself, what if they don't suck? Like, what if there is any sort of momentum to this and they do get to a point where, because once again, Daniel, we did not see the Central Division. Like, yes, I understand the Cubs are a heavy favorite to win the Central Division, but I
Mhm.
still don't think we see a National League Central that is, that anybody is going to particularly run away with. So while obviously I think it's good for all of us to have different set of expectations going into 2025, I am always going to have that question in the back of my mind.
Yeah, I think it's a safe question to ask. I mean, if the Cardinals get to July 15th and they are leading the NL Central, 2 or 3 games out of the NL Central, in the wild card hunt, can the Cardinals say, "Well, we're not going to trade. We're not going to make a deal because we like the people that we've got coming up." Or do they feel like they have to try to improve a team? And that's a difficult spot to be in because I think everybody's going to want them to improve the team if
Mhm.
they're that close. But what's it going to cost to do it?
Well, especially because they didn't take a number of risks that I think we expected them to
Mhm.
in the offseason for, I mean,
Yeah.
forget the last 2 off seasons, but even this past off season, like, there really has not been anything dramatic that's been done. So part of me also wonders if they are also just secretly sitting back and hoping, like, I don't know, this might work out better than we thought it would, and worst case, if that's what happens, cool.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I just wonder if there's, like, how many different versions of the playbook there are depending on how it plays out.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it is. I mean, and you throw in the whole Mo's last year, and then you throw in, how much does Hein Bloom have to say about a trade that, sends out a future piece for a, short-term rental or whatever the case may be. I mean, all those, front office dynamics come into play even a little bit more than we're used to because we've kind
Mhm.
of had this idea of a front office for a long time. This one idea of they're always going to try to do something, even though it's not going to be that big of a thing, but they're going to, continue to try to add and things of that nature. I think kind of all bets are off right now with
Mhm.
what happens with Mo on his way out and a year that is supposed to be development.
I think all Cardinal fans right now, though, would love nothing more than for the Cardinals to do anything that we are not expecting. Like, please shock us in the slightest. That's how I am feeling. Like, maybe it'll break my heart, but do something that is not exactly like you said, just what we have come to expect. And that is, like, ultimately, I think what I'm waiting for this season more than anything.
Yeah, well, we'll see. I'm still not. I'm still There's still a lot of the same guys in charge,
Right.
and old habits are hard to break. So,
Yeah, we'll believe it when we
I
see it. So that's what I'm
exactly.
hoping for.
And to be fair, I mean, you start talking about, like you say, you start talking about trades, and it's like, there are a lot of interesting prospects that the Cardinals have,
Mhm.
and you want to see them on the major league stage. Now, does that mean you can trade from the major league roster? Well, that's difficult to do if you're actually winning.
Right.
If you're struggling at July 15th, then do people like Nolan Gorman and maybe in somebody in the outfield. I don't know. It's really, again, you start thinking, oh, but no, I don't want to lose that one. But somebody could become available for the right deal or something of that nature. But if you're winning, it's really hard to do that.
Right. Yeah. I think whether it is in the way that they get more aggressive with, who they're going to bring up and who they're going to give playing time to. I mean, we kind of saw something that was unexpected in them putting Victor Scott on the opening day roster, right?
Yeah.
I wouldn't say that's enough of a, oh wow, look, they're really headed in a different direction thing. But I I think if we see a handful of more things like that, we will all get more excited regardless of what, the winning percentage looks like at the end of the season.
It's definitely a sign that something's different, I feel like, because the Cardinals have so often gone with that path of least resistance
Mhm.
that to put somebody like Victor Scott, who didn't have to come up, who could have easily played in Memphis for a while and made the roster decisions much more difficult and the roster, juggling every day much more difficult and not giving yourself a backup shortstop. Um, I think that indicated that they were at least willing to think outside the box a little bit more than they have been in the past.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess the other guy we haven't talked about at all yet is our leadoff hitter that I'm super excited to have healthy and hope he stays that way. But having Lars Nootbaar at the top of the order, I mean, he is, I think, second in the entire league in hits right now and is, as they've been saying on every broadcast, an on-base machine, but he truly is. And how big of a difference do you think having him like healthy and at the top of the roster is making for the offense in general right now?
I think it's big. I also think it was probably maybe the most long-term troll job that Ollie Marmol has done because he kept letting Mason Wynn hit lead
Yeah.
off all spring, and everybody's complaining about you can't have Wynn be lead off guy. You need somebody like Nootbaar up there, and then day one rolls around and Lars Nootbaar is your leadoff hitter. I think it helps. I mean, getting a guy that is patient, but also aggressive at the plate. A guy that, I mean, it's got to filter down, right? If a pitcher throws 10 pitches before in 10 hard pitches,
Right.
not just, you've really got to, you can't make a mistake with Nootbaar. And so then you get down into, Contreras sitting right behind him. And that's going to be interesting when Contreras really gets going. And then Donovan and a bit of a resurgent. We've talked about it at the beginning of the show. There's not a hole in this lineup, and I think a lot of that is because you've got Nootbaar not only leading off and setting a tone, but then able to come up when Victor Scott and Mason Wynn
Yeah.
are on base and do something with them, and it doesn't take. And I think it's one of those things. It doesn't take 3 hits to score a run anymore.
Right. Yes, the way that they have been able to string things together and the small ball and the long ball of it all going together because like we can't do one or the other, right? We've got to do it all. And that is one of the things that as there are just so many things about Cardinals baseball that we've taken pride in as fans of this organization for so long and it's all of the things. It's they don't do one thing particularly well. They do all of the things well. And that is, I think, the most exciting part of what we're seeing so far is, I mean, besides, I don't want to say besides the pitching because I'm overanalyzing and have some, just bones to pick in general of the setup that we knew wasn't going to change. But there it is more of a complete team and we're seeing that from 1 through 9 in the lineup, also in the defense on the field and just like the overall cohesiveness of what they're rolling out every day. And that they can't take away from us. So I'm excited. I feel stupid being like, oh, I'm excited to keep watching this team. I'm excited to see what happens because we've been burned so
Well, but
hard. But there is something
yeah,
that's different. There really is something that's
yeah,
different.
yeah. I think I mean, yeah, it's not. I mean, one, I mean, anytime you're watching development is always kind of interesting, right? I
Yeah,
mean, if you're a baseball fan and watching somebody, but it is such a dynamic, especially dynamic offense that it wasn't the last couple of years, and I mean, I haven't watched as much the last couple of years without, now that the streaming's back, I'm able to see more of it. But just even paying it, following along from the last couple of years, it felt dead all the time,
right.
right? That there was how many times bases loaded, nobody out. Okay, well, they don't score,
Right.
But even that, it was like, man, okay, well, they got a single, but it was with two outs. So there's no way that they're going to get three more singles. And so now to have aggressive at bats, even, right? I mean, you're
Right.
not just going up there just waiting for your pitch. They're looking for their pitch. And I think that it's very interesting to see. And I don't know how much I think a lot of it you have to, but I don't know how much of it you can give to Brant Brown, but a lot of it is going to him anyway. It's very interesting to see how fast a hitting coach can make that improvement on guys that are fairly young in their career and maybe don't have all the bad habits that, veterans in the past have had.
Yeah, that is a great point. I don't know how much credit we should really give to him, but I'm glad for once that we are wanting to lift up a hitting coach and celebrate it instead of just like throw tomatoes at them. So that's a good feeling. And yeah, I think overall, like the last couple seasons, it's felt like, oh, we have all these pieces. And if this guy does the thing he's supposed to do, it will be good, right? But it's a 162 game season. It's baseball. Like it will, as soon as you figure it out, it will beat you again. And the best players know that about it. And you heard them saying things like that and calling that out so many times throughout the offensive struggles that I just came to look at it as like, all right, well, if, we know Paul Goldschmidt is up here, if Paul Goldschmidt is not going to double or home run, and if he's not seeing the ball well enough, to do that right now, like we're out of luck because the next guy's supposed to do this and the next guy's supposed to do that. And it's just the lineup is much more dynamic now. And it seems like they're leaning into the unconventional strengths of different guys and just kind of letting each guy go up there and truly try to beat the pitcher, which is the number one thing that I immediately noticed was that it really felt like, yeah, in these at bats, we're really beating the pitcher at times rather than just having a lucky enough game and scoring enough unearned runs that Ryan Helsley can come in and, put a pin in at least
Right.
80 games.
Yeah. No, again, and I hate to, throw any kind of wet blanket on this because we shouldn't. We kind of deserve this after the last couple of years, but I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens when the offense does sputter because it's going to,
Mhm,
right? I mean,
mhm.
they don't do this all year long, and so what happens to the team? What happens to the fans? What happens to just everybody when they have 3 or 4 games where, they get 4 hits or that's about it, or they're hopefully not like the Reds and getting shut out 1-0, every day. But, um, I think that's gonna be interesting to see what kind of rebound that they might have and adjustments that they can make to get out of that kind of, malaise and not let it kind of filter over the whole team.
Yeah, not let it sink in for sure. I think one of the other things that we haven't mentioned yet is just the depth from the bench too. I mean, having guys like Nolan Gorman and Luken Baker on your bench, like that is what
Mhm.
you want. That those those are the guys I want to see in the 8th inning when there is a big spot that matters. Not no offense because absolutely love him, great value, not the guy I want to see coming off of the bench in Jose Fermin or Brandon Crawford in the last year of his career. So I think even from that standpoint, like the whole build of it is different from this from small things, right? Because
Right.
it's not that different, but something about it is different enough that I think even just having that feeling adds to the competitiveness of the at bats that everybody can take and just the kind of way that they feel they have each other's backs that allows every at bat to be just higher stakes, higher excitement, like a better opportunity.
Yeah. Now it is a awkward roster
Yes.
to some degree. And we saw that this week. Nolan Gorman has a hamstring issue that in the past probably just would have let him, sit out 2 or 3 games. But with the way the Cardinals roster is really constructed, they really felt like they needed to go ahead and put him on the injured list. One, let's talk about this from Nolan Gorman's perspective. We've already seen him not get quite as many at it's the 3rd game of the year before he got a chance to start. And for a guy that was expected to get 600 and something at bats this year, that's supposed to be one of the main focus points of getting them right. It's been a little bit interesting to see. Now, of course, in the last couple of days, how much of this is the hamstring, how much of it is something else, but it's still just a little bit interesting to see that they've not necessarily prioritized Nolan Gorman the way we thought they would, especially after Victor Scott made this roster.
Yeah, and I am bummed about that. That is the one thing that has been a side effect of, because again, as we have been talking about, I do like the fact that they have been a little bit more unpredictable and just done what might give them the best edge rather than trying to just check the boxes to fill the roster. So I don't mind that it is not, the most conventional roster, but I am bummed for Nolan Gorman because I do think, I was on a podcast a few weeks ago previewing the NL Central with some Pittsburgh Pirates podcasters, telling them that this is Nolan Gorman's year. I'm looking for full-on Gormania, 30 bombs or more from Nolan Gorman. Let's go. And I don't know if he's going to get a chance to even hit 15, But I also think that we can use that as an edge right now of the fact that there are, multiple different types of hitters that are looking for opportunities, and even different types of hitters that are playing the same position. And hopefully they won't be afraid to, use that as a strength. And there were just certain times the last couple of seasons too, where I felt like they were like, okay, no matter what, Brendan Donovan is in this lineup. So everything kind of seemed to fit around that. And they almost built it around like a couple things that they were really fixed on. So I don't know. I'm also one who's like, give me a consistent lineup. Just roll out the same lineup. It worked before. Roll the same one out there the next day. So I think there is some form of, flexibility within consistency that I want to see in the lineup. And man, I really hope that there is a spot for Nolan Gorman to, whether it is just build his trade value or like make a case that he absolutely has a long-term spot on this team. But I don't know. What do you see, or what do you hope for Nolan Gorman at this point?
I'd love for Nolan to find that groove and find that power that he's shown in the major leagues, but also that level of power that we've talked about with him ever since he was drafted. And I think that maybe there's possibilities that the way that this roster is, that it could be where, when Nolan gets on a hot streak, he's going to play for 2 weeks, 3 weeks in a row. And then when he starts to cool off, that's when you start to see, Donovan more at second or something of that nature. And maybe that's there's a little bit of, and that goes with everybody, right?
Yeah.
When Victor Scott cools off, maybe that is when Lars Nootbaar shifts over to center field a little bit more and things of that nature. So maybe that'll help minimize some of the funks that this team has had in the past. But yeah, I would love to see that. I don't know. It's very hard to imagine Nolan Gorman's long-term future here with JJ Weatherhold on his way
Right.
up, with Thomas DeJacy, with Brendan Donovan. Really probably should be playing second if he's going to be playing out there, even though he can play everywhere.
Mhm.
He plays very well at second. You look at all that and it's like, man, how do you get a Nolan Gorman in here? And if Arenado had left, that's a different story. But I'm perfectly happy to have Arenado here.
Yeah.
I think most people Does he become a DH or a first? I don't know. I mean, there's always ways to put a guy like that can hit 30 home runs on your roster, but I just you wonder if it rolled around to the trade deadline and if the Cardinals needed to make some sort of move that brought them back a cost controlled pitcher, if Nolan Gorman's not the asset they used to do that.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see which pieces become kind of highlighted on the trade block, and I don't know what that depends on at this point. But yes, I do think when I had that trajectory for him, it was under with the understanding that Nolan Arenado would not be
Right.
around. But like you said, like I'm not mad about that either, and
No.
especially with just the energy that he seems to be giving off, and obviously what he brings to the field on both sides of the ball cannot be ignored and will be respected for me always and forever. So, I can't be mad about that, but it's hard when we see these kind of pileups of guys who you just don't know how they all fit in the same puzzle.
Yeah. So on the flip side of this injury move was the fact that they brought up Thomas Ajayci um, to cover. I don't know if that's I think it's a little bit interesting because it's very easy that they could have brought up Jose Fermin, right?
Right.
I mean, he seemed like he's the veteran guy. He's the guy that they've had up as, the guy that can play backup middle infield stuff. They go with JC, which I mean, I like it. I'm very interested to see how they'll use him up here. Um, but I think again, it's just another one of those moves that maybe something is changing in the front office.
Yeah, that's true. It is just so strange too that like Nolan Gorman is, your power hitting second baseman. So like if you take him off of the field, you've got to bring
Yeah.
somebody like Thomas Saggese or Jose Fermin up to plug in there. But that always like feels weird about it too, because
Yeah.
man,
Yeah.
I love the idea of having bats like him and Luke and Baker on the bench, but it also seems like a wasted opportunity in some regard, and certainly not something I want to get too used to.
Exactly. And it's nice to know that it is a minor injury, or it seems to be a minor injury, and it probably is just the 10 days or whatever the case may be for him to get back. And hopefully that means he won't have lost a lot of time or any kind. He's had a little, he's only played, I think, one, maybe two games. Hopefully he won't lose what he's had. Because I mean, if he can get on track, I mean, like we said, this gives that whole nother dimension to this team, because we've seen long balls out of this team, but I don't know that we've got anybody that you just feel like every time they come up could hit a home run. And if Nolan Gorman is going well, I think that's the kind of guy he is.
Exactly. Yeah, and that's what you want out of him, and that's why he is really valuable to them even if he's not starting every day, because we have seen him find success, especially with the long ball from right and left-handed pitchers. There's not a situation when he's right that, you shouldn't fear Gormania striking at any point in time. So, I don't know. I do think there's plenty of opportunity, if he's healthy, for him to still make his mark with this team while he's here, at least.
So we've danced around it a little bit, but now I want to put you on the record because you are the expert in the vibes. Who has the best vibes after the first week?
Ooh, man, that's tough. And you know what? I'm glad it's tough. This is a good thing to have to weigh because, I could say Ivan Herrera because obviously, like, he
Okay.
is walking flames right now, and we love to see that. I could say Brendan Donovan because he's had a couple home runs too, and he just seems to, I love the natural leadership that he has and just the way that he plays the game, regardless of where he's at in lineup or on the field. I could say Nolan Arenado because I love the change that I've seen in him, and I think that is making a bigger impact not only on him, but the team as a whole. And I really expect that we continue to see that. But I think I have to go with Lars Nootbaar. I think the fact that he is healthy, he's not trying to make a show of it. He's in that leadoff spot with more confidence than ever in his plate discipline. And he's not trying to do anything in particular. I don't see him taking at bats where he's like, I'm trying to work a walk here or I'm trying to hit it out here. He is just really in the moment, I think, more than any player that I'm seeing on the field right now. And that, I think, is the ultimate way that you can ride the vibes. And then obviously he just, he has the natural energy to be the ultimate hype man for his teammates as well, which we love to see.
I mean, there's no doubt he's the one that came up with the bird flaps,
Oh,
right?
absolutely. I mean, I think Alec Burleson is like the other one that I think definitely could have helped with that and is like very into it. But it had to be. I think they just all look at him and are like, okay, what's the thing?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was the pepper grinder. Now it's a bird. And I liked it. It was very, I mean, first at bat, right? He base hit and he's flapping wings over there.
Exactly.
It's and it just sets the tone.
They were all on the same page about it, all bought in.
Yeah. And like you said, when you get Nolan to do it, that's saying something. I
And
think,
that's
to
the
some
thing is
degree.
like we all know by now that that Newt and Arenado have a close friendship, but there's something about that Newt is somebody who can clearly relate to and make someone like Nolan Arenado laugh, but then he's also able to goof off with Alec Burleson and all of the guys who haven't been around as long. He seems like he's just the right level of goofy, but also like demonstrating how to just get there and do the work and be in the moment. I'm really loving to see that from him right now.
Yeah. Yep. It's been a great first week. A lot better, I think, than we thought we would get. And hopefully we've got more good weeks to come. Kelsey, where can everybody find you? I know that it's numerous places.
Yes, I am mostly on the blue sky these days, but I am live tweeting most games or live blue skying, whatever you want to call it, at K Burd tweets. That's KBURD tweets. And then Peace, Love, and Baseball is my podcast that has a YouTube page, it has a Facebook page, it has an Instagram page. So if you Google Peace, Love, and Baseball, especially if you Google it with K Burd tweets, you can find me all over the place.
Yep. And you should. So do all that. And if you're not following Kelsey, you should be. It's been great to have you again this year, and we'll have to do it again. And we made it all this way without giving a shot at Ben and Nate, and I really feel bad about it.
Oh man, they had to listen all the way till the end just so we would talk about them. But here we are.
Nah, there's no way they're still listening. There's just no way. So. All right. Ben Clemens is supposed to join me next week, so look forward to that. But until then, for Kelsey, I'm Daniel. Good night.
It's amazing, Jack. This game of baseball, you could not write. Well, he comes back out now and takes his stuff. You can't write scripts like we see day in and day out, can you?
Hi, everyone. Rich Bray here, and today I'm looking back at Adam Wainwright's first Major League start on April 6th, 2007. Now, by the time Wainwright took the mound against the Astros for his debut start, he had already established his big league bona fides during the 2006 playoffs. During the Cardinals' run to their 10th World Series championship, Wainwright made 9 scoreless appearances, including 4 saves and a memorable strikeout of Carlos Beltran to end Game 7 of the NLCS. So when future Hall of Famer Craig Biggio stepped into the batter's box to open the bottom of the first, Wainwright wasn't nervous. In fact, he helped his own cause with a double in the 3rd inning before David Eckstein hit a sacrifice fly and Chris Duncan added a 2-run blast to give St. Louis a 3-0 lead. Houston's Carlos Lee hit a sac fly to cut the lead to 3-1, but that proved to be the only run Wainwright allowed in the game. In the 7th, with runners on 1st and 3rd, Astros catcher Brad Osmus laid down a bunt, but Wainwright pounced on the ball and threw home to Yadier Molina. Molina quickly tagged Chris Burke at home, then threw to first for a rare 1-2-3 double play. Quote, "I don't know how you can top it," Cardinals manager Tony La Russa said of the play. "The best part was how clutch it was." With 2 outs in the Cardinals' half of the eighth, La Russa called on Scott Spiezio to bat for Wainwright, ending the 25-year-old's day after 101 pitches. Wainwright finished the game with 4 strikeouts over 7 innings. After Duncan added a ground rule double in the eighth to give St. Louis a 4-1 lead, Jason Isringhausen held the Astros to 1 run in the ninth to earn the 250th save of his career. So that's the story of Adam Wainwright's debut as a major league starting pitcher. He went on to win 14 games that season with a 3.70 ERA, launching a career that included 200 wins, 3 All-Star selections, 2 Gold Gloves, and 2 seasons in which he was the runner-up for the Cy Young Award. For more Cardinals history, visit stlredbirds.com or follow me on Twitter at Remembirds, REMEMBIRDS. Thanks again, and go Cards.
St. Louis fans are one of a kind, and you'll